Hello, horror heads, and welcome to the show. Before we begin, I just wanted to give you a little heads up about what you're in for this week. This episode is going to be a little different than our previous ones because we had our very first guest on the show. Director and producer Tricia Lee has a brand new horror movie just released, and she was gracious enough to come on the show and talk about it with us. She's super cool, super nice, and we have the entire interview for you, and we hope you enjoy. With all that being said, let's begin. My name is Sheldon, and this is The Graveyard Shift, Horror with Sheldon and Mike. Mike, please play that music. Welcome to episode 8 of the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category and talk about all the info you need to know. And of course, I said we because I never work the Graveyard Shift alone, mostly because it's scary. But please say hello to my co-host, Mike.
Boo! Ah! Hi, everybody.
How are you doing, Mike?
Well, you know how I'm doing, Sheldon. You were with me. We had a great interview with somebody today.
Oh, we sure did. This is an exciting time for us because we had our first guest, and it was director Tricia Lee, and she came on to talk about her new movie, Blood Hunter.
Yep, I'll correct myself. It wasn't an interview. It was more of a conversation, especially since, well, as I'll reveal, in the end, my preparation style was, shall we say, unorthodox.
Your preparation style was, I'll do it on the day.
And then it became, oh, okay, we got 15 minutes. I'll work on it then. Oh, we've been running into problems for half an hour. Well, I guess we're doing it live.
So how exciting was it to finally get this episode all set up?
It was, we've been talking, we do so many things, wondering, how did they do this? What did they do? Why would they do this? What made sense? And we finally got someone to sit down and explain what it's like doing that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And Tricia is just awesome. I had no idea what to expect. I've watched some of her work. We watched this movie, and I read some past interviews with her that other people have done. But when it comes to actually talking to somebody live, you really have no idea what you're going to expect, what to expect from them. But she was just awesome. I really think she actually enjoyed her time with us, and she was just so easy to talk to, gave great answers, and I was just so glad to be able to get this to happen because we were talking about this for quite a while. And we really couldn't. It's good to actually be able to talk about this now because we really couldn't talk about it until we actually had our chat with Tricia recorded. Because, we were just hesitant to say what was coming up because we want to make sure nothing would hinder it. For example, originally we were going to do the interview before the movie's release, but due to Tricia's busy schedule, this just wasn't possible. So we had to do it just afterwards. And because we were on a tight schedule, if we ran into any tech problems, i.e. like what happened last night and then again today, because we were having a great time last night because I was trying to get my Skype recorder working, and for some reason, me and Mike would talk on Skype. We were testing it. Everything would sound fine while we were talking, but as soon as I would play back the recording, you could only hear my voice. So that was annoying, but we finally seemed to get a grasp on that. And then today, as soon as we start talking to Tricia, what happens? We're in the Skype call. Mike and Tricia could hear me, and I couldn't hear them.
Oh, when you would answer the call, because apparently you didn't even know. You're bugging me to tell me, dude, pick up, and I'm looking at I'm hearing my fucking Skype is going do 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 do. I'm doing my part of the exchange here.
Where the hell is Mike? He knows we're on a tight schedule. Tricia's waiting on us. I'm where the hell is he? So yeah, so I actually had to like ask Tricia, and she was so nice about it because I knew she was on a tight schedule. Had to say, can you just give us 10 minutes? I had to actually restart my computer, put everything back to default settings because we had no idea what happened, and finally got her on. So we took care of it. But it was just that, we were thinking if we ran into any problems and had to reschedule for a later time, we're just going to have to not scrap this episode, but postpone it and go on with whatever our next featured movie was going to be. So that's the reason why we really didn't want to say what was happening until we actually had this, our interview with Tricia all finished and ready to edit. So Mike, what kind of goofy name you got for this episode anyway?
Sheldon, I think that given that Tricia was nice and considerate enough to spend some of her time with us, I think we're going to forgo any juvenile antics and just lead into the interview, if that's okay.
I will fucking slap you. Okay, whatever.
Okay. All right. So, here's the interview, and, well, hopefully you won't be as disappointed as Sheldon is right now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Sheldon, and of course, with me, as always, is my co-host, Mike.
Hello.
And this is very exciting for us because with us right now, we have on the line award-winning director and producer who just released her third feature film, Blood Hunters, Tricia Lee. Hello, Tricia.
Hi, everyone.
And how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on this podcast.
Oh, that is awesome. I don't really believe you because most of the time me and Mike are not excited to be on this podcast. So.
Oh, come on. That can't be true.
No, it's not true. But anyway, thank you very much for taking time to talk with us today. I know this must be a very exciting and busy time for you with the release of Blood Hunters.
Yeah, we just released it on VOD and DVD across North America on July 4th, and then we had it in theaters in Toronto and Edmonton on July 7th. So that was just last week. So it's kind of a busy time.
Will there be a theatrical release, or is this like you're going for the online exclusively?
We did 1 week in Toronto, and we had a screening in Edmonton as part of the Dead Femme series. So that's basically the theatrical that we have planned at the moment. And now it's just on digital and DVD.
Okay, it's good. It's good to like just go out and be scared, but not have to deal with like a bunch of people around you. So we can do that in the privacy of our own home. So I applaud this whole video on demand thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can watch it when you want. You don't have to, sit through any other previews or anything like that. Or do you? I don't know. I don't use a lot of digital down.
That's what the pause button is for, so I can just like turn on YouTube and just be like, okay, what other trailers are out? I can watch the trailers I want.
Yeah, well, exactly.
There was no trailers in the copy that you sent to us to watch, but I'm sure whichever on-demand provider other people are using, they'll stick something in there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I don't normally do the digital downloads. I'm more of either in the theater or physical media or, yeah.
Me too. I'm with you. There's nothing like a theater experience for me.
For sure. I mean, there is definitely something to be said about watching it with other people and your energy feeding off of each other. And, whether it's being scared or emotional or laughing, it's having that communal experience. It was part of the movie experience, not so much anymore, but that's what I grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, we're going to talk a bit more about Blood Hunters in just a moment, but first we want to ask you a few questions just about yourself for our listeners who may not be familiar with your work.
Sure.
So you have quite a resume in the film industry. What got you interested in film in the first place?
Oh gosh, in the very, very first place?
Sure. Let's go way back to, young Tricia when you first got interested in filmmaking.
Yeah, sure. I think it all started when I was about 11 years old, and my parents took me to Universal Studios, and I went on all those rides. These rides, I don't know if they exist anymore at Universal, but I remember the Back to the Future, and there was an Alfred Hitchcock post-sound display, and there was E.T. and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which I'm sure they don't have there anymore.
Oh,
But
wow.
I saw behind the scenes how movies were made, and I guess I saw that it was possible to do that as a career. And at the time, I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist because I wanted to help people and I wanted to touch people's lives. And I remember being on the school bus, and there was this boy and this girl who had a crush on each other, and I made them talk to each other. And now they're married with 3 children. So I told
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I take responsibility for that relationship happening. But I guess at the time, that's what I thought being a psychiatrist was, talking to people and helping them and talking about relationships. I realize now that's not exactly what they do, but at the time, that's what I thought. So anyways, I went to Universal Studios, and I realized that filmmaking was the how I wanted to reach people and touch people, and this was the medium through which I thought I could do it. So that's where it all started.
Wow, I'm so jealous because as a kid, I always wanted to go to Universal Studios. I didn't care about Disneyland or anything like that, but Universal Studios always wanted to go.
It was great. I loved it.
And obviously had an influence on your life for sure.
I should go back and see what kind of rides they have now.
You really should. Okay, Mike, anything?
Well, I'm pretty sure, like, they had the Hitchcock experience, so I wonder if they're going to continue the trend of traumatizing directors, where there's now a Stanley Kubrick ride where you basically have to go through the ride 127 times until he tells you got it.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so Tricia, you grew up in Toronto, Ontario.
Hmm.
Is that right? And for our U.S. listeners, just in case you don't know, that's in Canada. And so,
Yeah, it's our New York, except it smells better, people are nicer, and it's slightly more affordable.
so
That's debatable. Expensive.
and your production company, Film Monkey Production Inc., is based in Toronto as well?
Yes, yeah. I opened that when I made my first short film back in 2006. Yeah, been making all my work through Film Monkey ever since.
Wow. So, does growing up and learning your trade and working in Canada have any influence on your style of filmmaking?
Um, well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think every life experience influences me in my filmmaking, so and my voice, and how I experience the world and how I share that through my storytelling. So, I mean, I didn't grow up anywhere else, so I don't have anything else to compare it to. But certainly, I mean, I am who I am because of the way I was raised and where I grew up and the people that I made friends with, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I would say definitely.
Sure. And a Film Monkey production, I've got to ask, is there a story behind the name?
Not really. I remember I saw someone's email address was Video Monkey at something, and I thought it sounded really cool and memorable. So I decided that I was going to be Film Monkey, and it's worked for me because even if people can't remember my name, they'll remember Film Monkey.
For sure, yeah, it stands out. Okay, Mike?
I'm good.
All right. So now you've had some past films receive some pretty impressive horror honors. You've had wins in the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, the Atlanta Horror Film Festival, and Blood Hunters was premiered at Fright Fest in London, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. So was horror a genre you had always picked yourself getting into? Were you always a fan?
I have to admit that I studied my way into the genre. I remember when I was a kid, I remember watching Carrie when I was really young with my
Oh, wow.
mom. And I also remember I was at a sleepover when I was younger, and they rented The Exorcist, so I was forced to watch that. And then we all went to a birthday party the next day, and of course, for some reason, the movie that they chose to watch at the birthday party was also The Exorcist. So I was put through that twice in 24 hours. And I think after that, I was like, oh my goodness, no more horror for me. It's definitely something that I watched when I was younger, and I think it's scared the crap out of me, and I could only go back to it in my adult life.
When I was in the elementary school, we when everyone graduated grade 6 and we were celebrating going to high school, we went to this little party at someone's house, and the movie that we had put on was Scanners.
Hmm.
So there seems to be like a theme of like horror movies being put on at parties.
Yeah, I think, when you're a kid, it's the cool thing to do. See how much you can scare your friends. I don't know what that's about.
Who barfs?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be for me to see how my friends react to it, to see which ones I'm going to remain friends with, see who I'm going to keep hanging out with.
Who's the A-list? Who's the A-list contacts, and who's like, okay, if everyone's busy, then I guess I can settle for these people.
Exactly. We'll finish
So then
watching
you
horror
have
movies. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say you'd have to watch the movie first and, figure out where all the scary parts are so that you know when to watch your friends for their reactions.
Exactly. I do the same thing now when I'm watching a scary movie with my wife. Like with when I know something's coming up, instead of watching TV, I'm looking at her. I'm just waiting for that reaction. So
I do that with my movies. If I watch it with an audience, I always love because obviously I know where everything is. I
of
love
course,
watching people.
I don't blame you. I would be doing the same.
Well,
So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's also just to see if what we created worked, right? You want to see if they're laughing at the right times or squirming at the right times, or if they jump, or if they're crying. The whole point in making movies for me is to move people, and get them to feel something and react. So when I get to watch it with an audience, I get to see the reactions, which is really the whole point in why I go through this whole process, is to get those reactions.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So, when it comes to the filmmaking process, which part is most difficult for you?
Oh, I would say it'd have to be raising the money. The before pre-production, before making the movie, it's trying to get the movie off the ground. It doesn't matter if it's a big movie, a small movie. It For me, that's the hardest part. I would like to focus on just directing, and the creative part and the story and the characters and working with actors. That's the stuff that I love. But yeah, definitely the raising the budget.
Hmm. No, I can understand. I mean, me and Mike get it. We ran into problems just raising money, to start a podcast. So I can't imagine doing a feature film, what that must be
Mm,
like.
yeah.
Although,
And
although it made it easy to wrangle people together when it was just us.
that is true. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you have money, it makes it easier to wrangle people, let me tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now as for Blood Hunters, we just watched it recently. Folks, fantastic. I highly recommend it. It has moments that make you jump, laugh, cringe, and cry. And could you just, in your own words, give our listeners a little info about it?
Sure. So it's a creature feature, if you couldn't tell by the poster. And it is about a single mother who overdoses, and she wakes up in a medical facility to find everyone around her dead, and she's somehow 9 months pregnant.
Yep. That was pretty insane. I love that. That opening scene like grabs you right away.
Yeah, we really just wanted to throw you guys into it.
This is like the inevitable fifth or sixth version of the Hangover. It's like forget missing a day or a night. Like what? Like I've been missing the last 9 months.
Yeah. And there's something inside me.
There you go. See that a new marketing angle. The sequel to the Hangover. There you go, Mike. Marketing idea.
There you go.
So, did anything, for example, any other works or anyone inspire Blood Hunters?
Um, the story really came from the writer, Corey Brown. We went to film school together, and we've worked together on all of the features that I've made. He wrote them, and I've directed them. So this was an idea that he pitched to me many moons ago, and it really never changed. The pitch that I just gave you was basically what he pitched me, oh gosh, 3 or 4 years ago. as the premise, and of course we built from there. But that was all him.
I see. Wow, good job. Okay, so Mike, anything?
I guess like that was my question was going to be like, had it changed from when you first heard it to when you made it? Because like some directors, they take a story and they run with it. Like, well, like well, we mentioned Kubrick before, but he had a thing with Stephen King where they did not really share the same idea, and King was pretty much upset with how Kubrick turned out with The Shining, so much so that he made his own version in the '90s. So, but you answered that for me. So,
Well, I mean, I would say the basic premise stayed the same. A lot changed after that. So basically, the film actually used to be called One Drop. Um, and originally, I don't even remember, this was so long ago, but I think so. Originally, it was actually supposed to be vampires, a take on vampires, but it wasn't. Modern day vampires are kind of they're pretty nice and they hang out with humans and they glisten in the sun. But
there are so many problems with that, but I won't waste your precious time with. Like,
right.
why
Well,
would you go to high school when you're 200 years old? You already graduated. Are you just going back because you want to hit on teen girls? Like, oh my God, there's so many problems with. I'm not even getting into the necrophilia aspect.
but yeah, so we wanted to go back to vicious vampires, and somewhere along the way that turned into creatures, so that definitely changed. And originally the idea was that there was something in the water, and that's what caused everyone to die, and so hence the name One Drop. There was, if you drank one drop, there's something, I don't know, there's something about the water. So, anyways, all of that changed, and that we kept the title through production because thematically, well, physically, it still worked because it was about one drop of blood, and these creatures were thirsty for blood, and they would kill for and do anything for blood. Um, but thematically, it was about how one drop of water can make a ripple effect in a pond. And so, similarly, humans can make a choice that can have a ripple effect throughout the world. And even though the characters in the film have made bad choices in their lives, they could still make one choice that can be good and have a good effect to save the world, essentially. So that was this whole big philosophical thing about One Drop, but we chose to change the name because I think without any context or without the poster, One Drop doesn't really mean anything. And also, we decided to take out the scene where one of the characters sort of talks about that ripple effect and that theme. So with all of that out, we just decided to change the title.
Okay, so it did go through some evolution throughout the filming process.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so I got to bring this up. You had some great acting talent in the cast. Two in particular stood out to me. One was Tori Higginson,
Hmm.
who I knew right away because I was a big fan of Stargate Atlantis when it was originally on. So it was awesome to see her show up. And Julian Richings, who I think he's been in everything. He's just
Yeah.
he's just one of those people that like you recognize him from so many things as soon as you see him.
Oh, as soon as he showed up, I was just like, it's death.
From Supernatural, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And
most
he's got
recently from. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, but he's got such a recognizable face too that you definitely remember him in everything that he's been in. He really is. He's so busy all the time, which is so great.
Yeah. So he played a great role too. Like I most recently recognized him from Orphan Black.
Mhm.
He played a great character on that show.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so, were you closely involved with the casting process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I it was basically me and the casting director who went through that. I had some input from the writer for sure. We only auditioned one role, which was the role of Ellie. where we cast Lara Gilchrist.
Hmm.
And I'm really glad that we did auditions, because when Lara came into the room and she did the scene, it was clear, and it was just really cool to see it come to life and really feel those words. It's one thing to read it in a script and you've read it over and over for a year, and the words start to lose their meaning. But when she came in, she really brought life to the words. And so we knew it was her right away. There was no callbacks. It was just, yep, that's our Ellie.
Wow.
And then the rest of the characters, we made offers to them directly.
Oh, so you had people in mind for this role that you that you wanted to fill them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so
wow.
we went directly to them, and so yeah, so we didn't do auditions for the other roles.
Amazing. That actually is pretty cool. Now, you said that for the role of Ellie, it was you had her come in on audition and you got her to read a scene. Was it any one particular scene in the movie that you got her to read that kind of sealed the deal?
Um, oh gosh, I think there were two scenes, but one of the scenes, if I remember correctly, was when she's talking to the other character Henry in the chapel, and they're talking about like her tattoo, and why he's in the facility. And it was just a really moving scene, and I had to do it a couple of different ways, try and put a little bit more humor into it, and maybe a little bit more emotional, just to see the range of that she could bring to it. But also, it's also cool to see the scene played in two completely different ways. That's how I like to audition. Is I like to let them do it the way they prepared it, and then I like to take them in the complete opposite direction, just to see how they go about changing.
Wow, cool. Okay, Mike, anything to add?
That was my question about the auditions versus calls, and again, you're preempting me, so I'm kind of annoyed.
Sorry.
I'm annoyed in a way that I don't get to contribute, but I'm also glad that's like, oh great, less lifting for me, yay, we can move on.
Yeah, we probably should have compared questions for before we
Well,
began.
we would have had time to do that, except for some technical difficulties.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll how about you take the wheel right now then?
You shot in Toronto. Was there like any location that like you wanted and didn't get, or did you like get what you wanted right away? And
So we obviously needed a medical hospital type location. We did look into a couple of hospitals. I mean, first of all, it was a low budget, so that was very limiting. And I think there was this one hospital that was closing down, and we were trying to see if we could get in there before they closed it down. Um, but for whatever reason, we didn't. And I saw pictures, but I never went in to see the place anyway. So maybe the schedule or the budget didn't work out. I can't remember. So then we just decided that we were going to build it. And so we just went around looking for empty warehouses where we could build the set. So the great thing about that is that we got to um, build it to our own specifications of what we needed. So that's definitely a bonus. And we had a fantastic production designer, Vince Moskovic, who is super, super talented, and was the hardest working person on set. So he built that entire facility. We had an empty warehouse and a lot of drywall. um, and yeah, so that was all him. Every single piece was built or brought in. So yeah, so it was great. We got to make it exactly how we wanted. In the movie, it seems like it's a big labyrinth of many hallways and many wings of this medical facility, but in reality, it was really only about four hallways. We just built a square, and you'd shoot one way, and then shoot the other way, and then change the set deck, and move the bed over here, and
Oh, wow.
so by not getting what you wanted, you got exactly what you needed.
exactly. There you go.
Well, it fooled me. I would have thought for sure you filmed this in a hospital somewhere. That was going to be one of my questions actually. So, good job, Mike.
Now you know how it feels to be preempted.
Oh, it makes me feel sad. So I mentioned earlier, Tricia, that it has some scenes that make you jump, laugh, cringe, and cry. There's one scene in particular, and I don't want to, for listeners who haven't seen this movie, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there's one scene in particular that made me both laugh and cringe at the same time, and that's a particular scene involving a spatula.
Yes. The real reviews call it the spatula scene.
Yeah, and there's no other way to describe it, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not giving anything away, but so I gotta ask, was that meant to be a gruesome, cringy scene, or was it supposed to be humorous?
Yeah, I mean, I was going for cringy.
But
Our special effects guy Sean Hunter did a really great job of getting a material. Well, uh, how do I say this without saying too much? Getting the material that we needed to make it cringeworthy, let's say. And so it turned out really well. I thought I cringed when we shot it, even though I knew.
yeah,
I mean, we all know it's fake, but it's still fun to watch. But I think I do think that people laugh, and I'm hoping that they're not laughing at it, but more laughing out of the uncomfortableness that they feel.
it. I laughed at it was kind of nervous laughter. I kind of felt like how you feel if you see somebody fall down and you laugh even though you do feel bad for them. That's the reaction that I had, because I cringe because without it ever, and I'm really hoping nobody ever experiences what happened to this character, but without experience it, you can kind of imagine how it feels and what type of reaction you would have to being in that situation. So that's where my laughter came in. It was kind of one of those, I kind of need to look away, because, but in the same time, I don't want to miss it. And, when the spatula came into play, it's like, I'm just cracking up. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a kind of funny accent to it, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it won't be showing up as a life hack on any YouTube video anytime soon.
I don't know. I'm going to carry a spatula around with me just in case that happens someday. I'll be prepared.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, with this film in particular, I know I asked you about what's the most difficult thing, and you said raising money, but was there anything about this film in particular that caused any problems during production?
Um, my instinct is to say not having enough money, not having raised enough money. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything specific. I mean, well, I mean, going back to the having built the set. So, like I said, Vince was the hardest working person on set because we actually lost a couple of our art department people in the process. So,
did the creatures get loose?
yeah, exactly.
Were the creatures real?
Should have built better cages. So it put a lot of extra work on Vince. So the poor guy would be building sets the night before we'd shoot. So I'd leave set and I wouldn't see the set that we're shooting on tomorrow because it didn't exist yet. And he'd be up all night and I would show up in the morning and there would be a set. So the kitchen, for instance, I literally left the night before and there was, I mean, some of the shelves maybe were in place, but you leave and you're like, I hope we have something to shoot on tomorrow. But he always pulled through, and then you saw the final product. So it's stuff like that, like if we had more money, we could have hired more people or gotten you know how it is. So
and he would have got a decent night's sleep.
Yes, the poor guy. Oh my goodness.
So, what can we expect from you next? Is there anything in the works?
Yeah, we're always developing projects. I work very closely with Corey, my writer. We have a bunch of scripts. One is a supernatural family adventure called Tin Cans, and I'm producing that with Chris Lockhart, who is my co-producer on Blood Hunters, and Bruno Marino, who's a fellow friend and producer of movies like Tapped and Gridlocked. I don't know if you've heard of those. Yeah. And then I have a crime thriller called Driving Mr. Edwards that Corey also wrote. We have a grounded sci-fi called Buying Time. and we're just starting to develop a film around the Kingston riot that happened in 1971 at the
Oh,
Kingston
okay.
Penitentiary. Yeah.
Got my attention.
Yeah, we have that. That's a project we have in development with Telefilm. So we're getting that off the ground. So, glad it's
So what
all.
you're saying is that you've got no plans of slowing down anytime soon.
Oh my goodness, no, not at all.
And if you're a film monkey junkie, your fix is coming.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see which one gets all. Juggling all the different balls in the air at the same time. We'll see which one comes to fruition first. And on top of all of that, I'm also, looking to be hired as a director, on features or breaking into television as well. Anything. I just want to keep being creative. I actually just shot a short film called Meeting Mommy with Simu Liu, who's in one of the stars of Kim's Convenience.
Oh, okay. I was just watching Kim's Convenience.
Yeah, he plays the son, and so we just shot a short together. And it's not horror; it's a super sweet father-daughter story. So a complete reversal from all the stuff I've been doing lately.
Right. Feel like you need a little break from all the gore and horror?
Well, when I made short films, this type of film was the kind of stuff I made. A family coming of age, lots of kids, that kind of stuff. So I get to go back to my roots a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mike, any more questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so Tricia, I have to ask you this. Now, this was asked by a listener in an earlier episode, and I found it to be a very difficult question. Mike had no problem, but I found it tough and couldn't really give a definite answer. So here it is. What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, I have two go-tos. Can I choose two, or does it have to be one?
I chose 10, so go ahead.
Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, oh man.
We had to end up breaking our choices into categories because it's just like there's so many number ones that you can't they don't beat each other. It's just like one's a natural horror, the other one's a science horror.
Yeah,
Right.
well, my thing was that's like asking me what's your favorite food, and I'm like, well, I can't answer that either. Like, do you mean an entree, an appetizer, dessert, snack? What?
Yeah,
So,
it depends
so
what
you,
day it is.
yeah.
Um, okay. Well, okay, there's three now. So and like I said, I watched a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but I watched some horror when I was younger, and then I kind of took a break. So, my choices are a little more contemporary. So I loved oh, well, oh man, now there's another one.
Keeps coming.
Mike, I smell another Patreon bonus episode coming up. Tricia
Okay.
Lee's top 10 horror movies.
So, okay, I'm just gonna say it before more come to my mind. So I was gonna say The Descent by Neil Marshall, and then
Oh,
the other one that came to mind was Dog Soldiers.
oh
So
my God.
I loved Dog
Dog
Soldiers.
Soldiers is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I lived in England for a year. I did an exchange program there. So I actually lived in Newcastle, which is where Neil Marshall went to film school. And so, when Dog Soldiers came out, I was working at a movie theater where he did the premiere, and I didn't know who he was at the time, but I was an usher there, and I watched that movie every single day for like a month or a couple of weeks at least. And so I've seen that movie like 15 times. And I know it inside out and I love it. And so I came back to Toronto and I told all my friends, oh my goodness, you have to watch this movie. And so, so we got a copy and I watched it with them. And there's actually a different cut in North America. So I don't know what version you've seen.
Really?
Yes, because the version I saw, I was flabbergasted because they cut out this one scene in the beginning where I think the guy gets stabbed probably through the heart with a branch.
Okay,
And
yes.
it was cut out probably because it was too violent. But you can't just cut out a piece of gore just because you think it's too violent, because it actually plays into the story later. Because in the cut that I saw, the captain is super upset about that guy dying, if I remember correctly, and
Mm-hmm.
he's super upset about it at the end, but we don't see that guy die, so we don't know what he's upset about.
Okay, yeah,
Anyways,
I definitely remember that scene, so I saw the same cut that you did.
okay. Um, I'm glad because anyways, that was great. So I love that movie. And then I really love Let Me In. Yes, I really like the American version. I know people are, Let the Right One In or Let Me In. I saw the American version first, and I really fell in love with it.
Hmm.
So I really liked that. And most recently, I saw Train to Busan, which made me sob. That is
Oh,
something that
wow.
I am so glad that I watched it with an audience in a theater, and I'm glad that I had that experience of going through those emotions with a theater full, jam packed full of people.
Hmm.
Um,
Actually, Train to Busan is actually on our list. It was because with our listeners, we basically for the past few episodes and for many more to come, we watch movies based on listener suggestions.
uh,
And a listener of ours sent in as a request for us to watch Train to Busan, and she said, "This is I just recently saw it, and it's automatically one of my favorites. So you guys have got to watch it." So
yeah, I 100% agree. So you haven't seen it yet?
no, I have not. I have it actually put on my Netflix queue, so it is coming like on my list to watch.
Oh my goodness, you have to watch it tonight. That's the I don't want to build it up too much, but when I watched it, it did automatically become one of my favorites. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We've got backup, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we have it. So good choices. I fully like. I'm so glad you've mentioned Dog Soldiers because that is one. There's so many people I've brought up that movie to, and they have never heard of it. So to have someone else bring it up, it's made me very happy.
Yes, yeah, it's really good. Definitely everybody should watch it.
For sure. So for our listeners, Trisha, if they want to see Blood Hunters, I know you mentioned it earlier, but let's go over it again. If they want to see Blood Hunters, what options do they have?
In Canada, it is out on DVD. You should be able to find it in your local Walmart. And where else? It's on. Um, okay, so DVD, it's on Amazon, Best Buy, Cinema One, and rental stores, and of course Walmart. And then on iTunes, Xbox, and PlayStation. And then in the USA, it's basically on every VOD platform, every digital platform, including iTunes, Google, YouTube, Vudu, Amazon, Microsoft, Vimeo, PlayStation, and on DVD, it's in Redbox, Amazon, Family Video, public libraries, even. So, yeah, you can find it almost anywhere.
And if you happen to have a horror movie podcast and you ask nicely, Trisha will send you a free copy.
Yes.
And if our listeners want to know more about yourself and what your other works are, how would they do that?
Well, I have a Facebook page. If you just search Tricia Lee, or my Twitter is at Tricia Lee _, or my Instagram is Tricia Lee Director.
Great. Okay, Mike, do you have anything to that you want to ask?
Well, if you're ever shooting anything in Ottawa, let me know. I'd love to make a cameo or, fetch people's coffee or, just be a part of it in any way whatsoever.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be fun.
You get some free labor over here, courtesy of the horror movie, the Graveyard Shift podcast.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in Brampton, so I'm nearby Toronto. So next time you're filming in Toronto, I'll gladly help out with any give your set guy any break every once in a while.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
So we'll put those links in the episode show notes. So if anyone wants to follow you, they will be able to easily. Well, Trisha, it has been an absolute honor speaking with you. Thank you so much for doing this. Congrats on Blood Hunters.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
this is great. And yes, folks, you have to check out Blood Hunters. Just listen to the options that Trisha listed. You have to see it. It is great. Can't wait to see what you bring us in the future.
I look forward to coming on the podcast again and sharing it with you.
Oh, you have an open invite.
Oh, here. Thank you.
Yeah, you just let us know and we'll be like, yep.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Trisha.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, listeners, we hope that you enjoyed our conversation with Tricia. And I'm going to share a secret now that she's gone. I only got to watch the movie last night, and I went to bed right away, and I didn't have any questions at all. So I think I did a pretty good job of winging it and just pulling them out of my butt.
You did a great job of thinking on the fly, and I had a feeling that's what was happening. I was like, I hope that's what's happening anyway. I'm not just like jumping the gun on all of Mike's questions.
I had absolutely none, but I'm just like, I'll take post credit for that one.
Good job, Mike. They're great. That's some great interview skills there.
Oh, there were questions I did want to ask, and then you did preempt me, and I'm like, I only had one good idea, and he snaked me. That
was you? Oh, so I'm going to assume it was you the one. You were the one that sent me the text that just said "motherfucker." And there you have it, our very first guest. And Mike, I don't know about you, but I think that was pretty damn cool.
It was just so great.
This has been such a long process. Not a long process, but a long wait, because it was, my God, how long ago was it that somebody actually sent me the trailer for Blood Hunters and said, hey, maybe you guys should check this out when it gets released. And I watched the trailer, I told Mike about it, and we both said, oh yeah, when this gets released, we'll definitely check it out. And then when I just happened to find out some more information about it and about Tricia, I told Mike, you know what, just as a shot in the dark, I'm going to send her a message and just see if she wants to come on the show and do a little promo for Blood Hunters and see if we can make this happen. And really, she was like almost instantly, wasn't it? Like just like a day or so later. Was like, hey, yeah, that sounds like fun. Like, here's my email address, and we'll talk about it. And she's pretty cool, because I can't imagine what kind of crazy schedule she's on right now with the movie just being released. She's doing all kinds of press and interviews about it, and she still managed to find some time to talk to us. So, just amazing.
Oh, and sharing such great insights into the movie. Like, as I said at the end of the little conversation, I didn't have any time for prep, so I was just scrambling for questions like, oh shit, okay, well, hopefully she hasn't heard this one before, or that Sheldon isn't like just about to ask it. And it like really finding some great revelations about the movie, like the changes in locations and finding out about the set design, like that. Like, she was just like so informative, like not just like, you asked this question, I'm only going to share this chunk of information. Like, no, she, like, it was not an interview, but just a great conversation with a creative Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely. She's just awesome. And, yeah, she really did give some good insights. And, like, honestly, like, I wish that I had even more questions asked, because I think she was enjoying it as well. That, she actually enjoyed talking about it. So, but at that point, I was just like, anything else would just seem like really tacked on. So I'll just leave it at the relevant questions and not take up any more of her time.
You didn't want to mic it up.
I'm going to start using that phrase. Oh, God. So I really want to talk about Blood Hunters, but I don't want to, just out of respect for Tricia, I don't want to give away any spoilers. But one of the things I got to say about Blood Hunters is that it's probably one of the most unique stories that I've ever seen. Like, there's really nothing like this when it came to the overall story.
Yeah, like, it, like, just goes beyond simple, like, this exists, that happens, blah blah blah. It leaves a lot of questions that, and the best part is, like, even though they're very pivotal to the story, they kind of also don't matter as much as they do.
Yeah.
And even when they're not answered, it's like it's okay, because it's still like, it's less of a plot hole and more like, just, this doesn't need to be answered because this is all you need to know.
Yeah, it's not like some movies where, like, there's something happening and all kinds of craziness happening, and all of a sudden there's some big revelation where somebody all of a sudden becomes some kind of expert and like, oh, I know exactly what's happening, and goes on to this long explanation. It was more of like, hey, this is what's happening. We don't know why, but we have to deal with it. And like kudos to the writer, because this was. I know, like Tricia said in the interview, that there was definitely some evolution from the original story to, there was some deviation throughout the filming process, but overall it was the same story. So good on him. That was great.
Yep, I don't think we have to wait another 20 years for this guy to do his own made-for-TV version of the movie, because...
No, I don't think there's going to be any rivalry between the two, where, he's going to all of a sudden have a grudge with Tricia because, she deviated from his story too much.
He's listening to this He's listening to this interview right now going, oh, one day she's going to get hers. And I'll be waiting, just tapping my fingers together and biding my time. The true vision of One Drop will be heard.
Well, this is something rare for us, because I think so much was covered in our talk with Tricia that I don't think we really have much more to say about it. Like, we can't, because we don't want to ruin this movie. Really watch it. I recommend it. Just watch it.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything. And it's like, I want to say something, and then I realize, like, no, that's going to give something away. So just watch it. Like Tricia said, it's a creature feature. You have the overall plot straight from Tricia herself. Just watch it.
When you have when enough time has gone by, and we think that everyone's watched it, maybe we'll get an official review somewhere.
Yeah, maybe, down the road for sure.
Maybe down the road, maybe here, maybe elsewhere. Who knows?
Hey, we'll make it. Tell you what, we'll make it as a Patreon exclusive, so that way, then, if Tricia wants to hear like what we've said about the movie, what our honest opinion is, she'll have to pay for it.
Yeah, with that big producer money.
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. Or would I?
Well, I think well, she can work out a trade. She gives us a movie, and we'll give her a podcast episode. Fair
there
trade.
You go. Fair trade. So, speaking of Patreon exclusives, I guess, before I go on, I should maybe not, skip over you. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about the movie without telling too much?
Excellent special effects, good costume design, and a very competent stuntmen and people that were in that makeup. I looked them up on IMDb, and quite accomplished people.
Mm-hmm.
So this was good talent put to good use. So check out this movie and let us know what you thought of it.
Good story, nice practical effects.
You may have to get it on video on demand. This isn't one of those things where you could probably score a pirated copy. You shouldn't get a pirated copy, at least not of this movie, because she's a Canadian producer, so you got to keep that money in the country. And if it was an American movie, then they make enough money.
Yes, if this is some huge studio production, we can be a little more forgiving when it comes to maybe catching it for free. But yeah, pay a couple bucks to watch this one. You won't be disappointed. Good story, good practical effects, just all around enjoyable.
Yep. And I guess that wraps up our talk on that. Now we can talk about our show.
Yay! So we want to hear from you. If you've seen this movie or you have movie suggestions for us, which we've been getting a ton of. Thank you guys so much for that. We've got some great ones coming that I can't wait to talk about, and even some recommendations from Tricia now. So, and we've got one movie in particular that has gotten a couple of recommendations. We should probably get on that one. So, if you do have any suggestions, comments, you just want to say hi, you got a few ways of doing that. You can email us at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter, and we've been getting quite a few of you doing that lately, so there's been a big spike in our followers, so thanks for that. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can reach us at GYS_horrorpod. And of course, you always have the option of talking to us on Facebook, and just go on Facebook and search at the Graveyard Shift Pod. And if you want to give us a little financial donation to help keep the show going, help cover our costs, and potentially maybe be able to help us do some things later on, like maybe make some merchandise, do some live shows from some horror events or other locations, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/graveyard. And seriously, guys, for $1, you can really help us out. There's a $1 minimum donation, and that gives you access to some pretty nice Patreon exclusive content, actually. We've got a couple of exclusive episodes there. We've got more coming. And really, it just really helps us out. And it's not something ongoing that you have to keep doing. Like, one donation is fine. You can make the one donation and then stop. Trust us, we won't be offended if you do that. Because
just use us and leave. We know it's all we're good for.
Yeah, just leave some money for us if you do that. That's all.
Just leave a 20 on the dresser.
But of course, not everyone has the money to give us money, but you can still help us out a ton by going on iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. Really, in the long run, that's what helps us out the most. So do that, and that'll be awesome. And if you do give us a review or subscribe, let us know, and we will give you a little kudos on the show. Make sure people know that, you're helping support. And besides that, just keep doing what you're doing. If you're listening to us right now, you obviously know how to find podcasts somehow. Just keep listening. Really, that's all it takes.
And tell people how awesome we are.
Yeah, share.
And for all those people who have been missing the cutting room floor segments, it's just want to let you know we haven't been doing the show that long where we feel like we need to redesign the format or anything. It's just we've been hitting movies that don't really raise any unanswered points, or like nothing that wouldn't feel forced. And the reason that we feel that they're good, I mean, your reasons can vary, and we'd like to hear if you disagree, but we just feel like they come organically from little gaps in the movie themselves that, really beg a question like, where the frick did this point come from? Like, where did that person come from? What happened afterwards? And the last couple of movies we saw were pretty complete. It's not like saying that, they're too good or too bad. It just... they didn't leave anything that was glaringly unresolved. But we do hope to find more flawed movies in the future.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That beg for a little extra explanation.
Yeah. But I find it so cool that someone actually mentioned that. Like, hey, where's the cutting room floor segment? I missed that. Is it gone for good? So, yeah, don't worry. It's not going to happen with every episode. But, anytime that we feel that we've got a direction to take it, we'll be throwing it in for sure. So don't worry, it's not gone for good. It just happened for these past few episodes, that's all.
Yep.
And so that's all the coverage we have for this episode, but we're not done quite yet.
So, Sheldon, what are we doing next week?
Well, we got another fan suggestion, because I think we've got fan suggestions to last us at least a couple of months or more. But we got a suggestion from one Rick M, who's highly suggested VHS 2. He says you don't need to see VHS 1 to understand it's a good enough standalone flick, and he thinks that this sequel is actually better than the original. So you got it. We're going to be covering that one next week.
Sweet.
And that means, Mike, you actually have to watch the movie, the date, probably at least the day before we start recording.
Well, at least I don't have to deal with one of the taste test games anymore, so that will...
I should actually bring that up, before we go, so, because we went through our contact information, but if people wanted to hear more from you, where could you do that?
Oh, well, I do another podcast called Playing with Power, where we read and review Nintendo Power magazines one issue at a time, and occasionally we throw in another show like a press pause where we talk about things that are coming up in video game news, and also a show with Brandon Boswell, my fellow Canadian stoner chef buddy, where we play old video games that we missed as kids or never got to finish, and just, give them an actual taste test. And since he's a chef, we all see taste test. It works because it's a food pun, and me and puns. And we're going to be doing a Sega game in the next taste test. So you can listen to the Playing with Power podcast feed wherever podcasts are acquired, or you can check out the Facebook page for Playing with Power podcast, which you can find a link on our page leading to that as a friend of the show.
Wait, a Sega game covered on the Playing with Power podcast?
Yeah, our host, Ben, decided to throw a real wrench in our programming because I originally wanted to just do Nintendo and maybe Super Nintendo games because there are about 700 Nintendo games that were made, and I've only played about, let's say, 50 or 60 of them, and that would be a generous estimate. So I thought I'd have like 600 games, new games to play, and he decided, well, I'm going to recommend you do a Sega Master Drive game. And I'm like, now I have to get a different emulator.
I'm pretty sure that breaks some kind of blasphemy laws somewhere.
Yeah, well, fuck, this was, like, the game itself was kind of neat, but the emulator only played like a fraction of my Game Boy screen. So, even though I'm getting not the full screen on the Game Boy, I'm also not getting the full screen of the game. So I have to use the shoulder buttons to pan left and right to see the beginning of and end of the words in the caption boxes. Even though I've got two massive black bars on the side. Oh my god, this emulator's so fucking bad. Like, it was made for a DS, not a 3DS, so it wasn't made for like a bigger screen.
I've got to bring up a little bit of a bone to pick with the Playing with Power podcast.
Alrighty.
I was a guest on the Playing with Power podcast. 2 times, actually. Well, not 2 times, but I did a 2-part episode.
And I met the Playing with Power podcast, and you, sir, are no Playing with Power podcast.
Okay, here's my beef. I wasn't when I was asked to be a guest, I wasn't set up for any type of podcasting, had to borrow everything that I needed to be a guest. Now that I'm all set up, established, doing a weekly podcast of my own, where's my damn invite back?
Well, if you've been listening to the feed, we've had a lot of esteemed guests. So
so that's what it is. I'm not esteemed enough now to be a guest.
We've moved beyond, okay? We were different people back then. Now
here I am now with a world famous horror movie podcast here, can't walk out on the street without being recognized. Because of my audio only format show, weekly show, and can't get an invite back to my own friend's video game podcast. I'm calling bullshit on that.
Maybe next season.
Ugh, all right, fine, whatever. I'm canceling my Patreon. Anyway, so yeah, check it out. If any of our listeners are fans of old school retro games, and you're a fan of the old Nintendo Power magazines from back in the day, you're gonna love it. Going to give you a little heads up about some of the topics that come up. I think when I was on there, we somehow started off talking about video games and ended up talking about centaur sex. Was that right?
Oh, yes, and then there was all, like, optimal mermaid configurations.
Yeah, so, fun times.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you ever wanted to, like, is there a podcast where Mike is the least profane and vulgar guy on the show?
Yeah, if you ever wondered about that, then, yeah, that's the podcast for you.
If you ever wonder, is there a podcast where Mike is the Sheldon of that show? Then there you go.
Well, you mean the sensible, intelligent, and incredibly handsome host?
With full of helpful and relevant facts.
Speaking of helpful and relevant, we've kind of derailed here.
Yeah, we got like a really 20-minute. We got a 20-minute.
But I did want to say once again, thanks for Tricia Lee for coming on the show. That was amazing. What a way to kick off, like having a guest on the show. That was pretty incredible. Having an actual established director and someone involved in the film industry.
Putting up with our fuck ups on the Skype end.
She's so patient. Oh my god, I felt so bad. She's like, she thought she was getting involved with somebody who's got like a horror movie podcast, and they want, a chance for me to talk about my new movie, and these jerks can't even get Skype figured out. So
it's like you turn it on and you talk. Where's the problem?
You'd be surprised. If there's any way to find a technical problem with something, I'll find it. But check the show notes for this episode, guys. If you want to find out more about Tricia, we're going to have her links to her Facebook page, her Twitter feed, and some other ways that you can find her movie. So, yeah, definitely check that out. But with that being said, that's all I have to talk about today, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's all Mike has to talk about. So,
yep.
Until next time, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Mike.
And please come see us again on the Graveyard Shift. Oh, good job, Mike.